reason is that the sweet, sour, and salty tastes all reduce vata. So suppose you have a lot of nervous energy in your system, and you don't really, it's happening at a subconscious, unconscious level. You know that you're uneasy, but you're also attracted to something namkeen with a little bit of, yes, and you know, some chutney to go along with it. So now you have the sweet and the sour and the salty tastes, all of which are going to temporarily reduce the vata. So you will feel a little better after that, at least until all of that starts to digest, in which case, if your digestive power is not very strong, then you won't feel so good again. The tastes were important. Of course, you can get those tastes from other things. If you apply oil to your system, that's kind of like applying the sweet taste to your skin. You can apply the sweet taste to your ear with the help of music. I mean, sweet music. And you can apply the sweet taste from the smell point of view as well. Most things that are fragrant have a certain basic sweetness to them. So you don't have to limit yourself to eating. There's a tendency to do that because you have to eat every day. But it's good to explore all five senses when it comes to inputting things into your system to encourage vata to be reduced. Vata is very light. So sometimes the best way to reduce vata is simply to add, well, maybe not simply, but you even adding weights or some kind of weight to your arms or your legs makes your system a little bit heavier. So you have the sensation that there's a little bit more mass in your system. One of the reasons, not the only reason, but a common reason for people to gain weight when they are under stress is that the body wants the extra mass to feel like it is heavier, because the vata is making you feel lighter and less grounded. And when you're feeling ungrounded, your system wants you to feel, it wants to find a way to make itself more grounded. So if you can ground the system better by meditating, by doing yoga, by getting an adequate amount of good quality sleep, by getting up early enough that you can prepare yourself for your day without rushing around, as we say in the US, like a chicken with its head chopped off, then automatically you are encouraging vata to start moving in the right direction at the beginning of the day, and then there's a greater chance that during the remainder of the day, it will at least try to move in the right direction. Vata does not encourage good digestion. So when in doubt, have soup, or have khichdi, especially mung khichdi. Mung is easier to digest and also more filled with sattva than the other types of things. Here's a question that I would like to address here. Vata disease is an umbrella term that includes musculoskeletal diseases. How can ulcers also be caused by the dosha of vata? And how to balance vata in particular and the other doshas in general. So musculoskeletal diseases are like arthritis and are very commonly due to vata because vata is contained in, circulates in the nervous system chiefly. And the nervous system, of course, interacts very strongly with the musculoskeletal system because it's the nervous system that induces the muscles to move. How could vata cause an ulcer? is the same way that how could, for example, Vata cause a heart attack? Heart attack could be due really to any of the three doshas. You could have a heart attack because your arteries have become completely filled up with plaque, and they're filled up with cholesterol and other things. Then we could say that there is too much kapha has been accumulated there. For whatever reason, probably that was due to inflammation, and that inflammation very possibly was due to Vata, basically, but still, it's manifesting due to kapha. Sometimes there is not so much plaque, but there is a lot of inflammation, and sometimes that inflammation is sufficient to cause the walls of the vessel to close off and for there to be an infarction. And sometimes it's not a matter of either the vessel being filled up, or sometimes it's not a matter of the inflammation. Sometimes it's actual, the vessel is simply, because often from a psychogenic or neurogenic reason, that there's the vessels are too constricted for the blood to move through. Similarly, in the case of ulcer, an ulcer could happen when there is, let's say, a peptic ulcer, for example. It could happen when there was simply too much acidity in the system. Or it could happen when there is simply insufficient circulation in an area because of Vata. Vata always causes constriction, always causes sankoch. As a rebound effect, it may cause something else, but constriction is the main reason for it. So, when you want Vata to be relieved, you want to find ways to reduce the constriction. Of course, you want to try to identify whether that sankoch is mainly in your body or in your mind. I have a friend in Benares who is always inviting me to come over and dine with his family. And he is always, and I'm saying, gosh, I'm here in Benares, and it's a limited period of time, we've got a lot of things to do. And he will interpret that as simply as something else, and he will always say, sankoch mat karo. So, he's attributing that to sankoch when I'm attributing it, the fact to, actually, there's no sankoch involved, I just... So the sankoch may be occurring at any level of the organism. The ultimate effect of the sankoch is that something will not be circulating properly. And ultimately that will be the prana. But when the prana is not circulating properly, the prana may manifest itself in its improper circulation via the blood, or via the lymph, or via the nervous impulses, or any of the other things that have to be circulating in the system. So, whatever you can do to promote consistent circulation in your system is going to encourage Vata to move along more healthily. It is now October. Not too long from now, it will be winter here. Winter is chilly. Chill means sankoch. So you will be in the position of, you will be here, and of course, you will soon have, in January, there will be the fog, the interminable fog, that disturbs those of us who think we might want to fly into Delhi during January. Always think very carefully about that and prefer the train instead. Because you know that the train will get there. 3 ghante der hoga, but fear at least. You're not stuck in some airport somewhere. So when it gets colder, you're going to get colder. You're going to become more constricted. And the air in your city is not good. So right away, your lungs are already being disturbed. And now you're going to be more constricted. So it's very important to invest a little bit of time every day to try to be warm. And that especially means applying a little bit of oil. And that especially means moving around sufficiently to make sure that your system is warmed up. Maybe that means you have to do more exercise in the winter than you do in the summer. Just for the purpose of making sure that your circulation is not constricted. It is also very important to eat less sugar. Until very recently, sugar was a luxury item. It is now, I was just reading somewhere, that if the trend in the United States continues, that in the year 2600 and something, if the trend of the increase in the amount of calories that Americans get from sugar, if that continues, that by the year 2600 and something, the American diet will consist of 100% sugar. We know that this will not happen because, of course, there will still be white flour and other things to participate with the sugar. But the point is that all people around the world consume too much sugar. Sugar is not good because it promotes unevenness. It causes your blood sugar to go up very quickly, and the blood sugar then goes down quickly. And this promotes vata, sudden change. The more sugar you take, the higher it goes, and the further down you go after you have gotten to the high. There's always a rebound effect. What goes up must come down. So it is extremely important not to start your day off with sugar, or for that matter with caffeine, which does the same thing. It's very important to wait until at least 2 or 3 hours after you've got up before you consume anything that is going to cause your blood sugar to increase substantially and quickly. Because once that starts, you're going to be doing this for the rest of the day. And that is not going to promote good health. That is going to promote making it more difficult to focus. It is going to promote making the 3 tissues in your body that cannot store glucose, that would be your skin, your eyes, and your brain. It will encourage them to be under greater stress, because part of the time they will have lots of food and part of the time they will have insufficient food. So there will always be a craving, especially on the part of the brain, which uses up 25% of the food that you take in. So if the brain feels like it has lots of food and then has no food, then it will crave lots of food and then it will again have no food, and you'll just be wearing it and you out by doing this. So wait as long as you can, and make sure that once every week or 2 you have no caffeine, and if possible, at least for a week, 3 or 4 times a year, no caffeine. And this applies to any other addiction you might have, so that your organism remembers what it's like when it doesn't have those things. It's the same, as my mentor always used to say, it's the same thing. Even taking nice things like triphala is a nice thing. He told me that you could take it for as much as 6 months at a time. But after 6 months, you should stop for a month or so. Let your body remember what it's like not to be doing it, and then you can always increase it. You can go back to it again. So that applies to everything.
What about salt?
Applies to salt also.
And also yes.
Yes. Salt should definitely be reduced. Thank you, that's a good point. Salt is also now something that is no longer a luxury item. In the days before, before agriculture, the estimate is that humans took in 10 times as much potassium as sodium. And nowadays we take in 2 times as much sodium as potassium. That means we've increased our sodium intake by 20 times. And sodium, Ayurveda suggests that salt is very good for many things, but it's especially good for causing your skin to age quickly. So, less salt is better. And going without salt periodically is very good, even for a day at a time, again, just to make sure. But the challenge is that, and it's the same with masala, and it's the same with everything else. You start eating a little, and then if you're not, if you're not maintaining your sense organs in a healthy way, you will find that you get to a certain level of eating salt or sugar or whatever it is, or chilies, and it's not quite as satisfying as it used to be. So then you increase it a little more. Then you increase it a little more. And then pretty soon, that's all that your food consists of. Masala, sugar, salt. And then problems occur. Ati sarvatra varjayet. Excess should be avoided in all things. But the world we live in is a world of excess. So looking into your own life and your own experience and finding those areas in which you are already excessive, and finding ways that you can experiment with trying to be less excessive will always benefit you. Vegetarianism. I would argue that eating large amounts of meat does, in fact, have very tangible consequences. So, Ayurveda is not a vegetarian medical system, though people have told me that it is in the past. If you look in the texts, you will find that they mention that eating meat may be a desirable thing when it is appropriate for you. If there are moments when your organism requires it, that's the time you should be eating it. Ayurveda has never said that anything is bad or good. In fact, the Charak Samhita says very clearly that everything, every substance and every action in the world can be used as medicine. It does mention, however, that if you intend to eat meat, you're better off eating venison. Venison is the meat of the deer, or goat, and that you should never become habituated to beef or pork, because they're not healthy. There's nothing like a moral sense in the traditional Ayurveda. The morality involves making sure that you are healthy and you consume what is appropriate, what is hita for you to be healthy, and not do what is ahita for you, what is going to promote ill health. That being said, generally speaking, there is great benefit in not consuming a large amount of protein, because protein is inefficient fuel for the body, and when it burns in the system, it produces a lot of acidic waste. It is certainly useful for people who are very vata aggravated to eat 6 or 8 times a day. Small amounts, small, easily digested, so not samosas 6 to 8 times a day. I like samosas, but they're not per se, this is not something that will easily be digested by your system. So if you're going to eat 6 or 8 times a day, it should be 6 or khichdi or something, again, that is not going to be complicated for your system to digest. But that really should only be, the case for people whose vata is really disturbed. Otherwise, you should be eating as infrequently as possible so that you're not keeping your digestive tract always in a state of digesting something. You should not be stimulating your stomach all the time, because that's not what it was engineered to do. It was engineered to, and let's face it, it was engineered to have food occasionally and for there always to be a season of the year where there was almost no food. So the fact of modern life that we have food, and especially this last 50 or 60 years, we have food available to us 24 hours a day, as much as you want, of whatever kind you want. This is completely abnormal. And unless you are always doing something to restrain yourself, you're going to be tempted to move in that direction because the temptation is being broadcast to you all the time. So, all the more reason to at least have one day every week or one day every 2 weeks where you're restricting yourself so that you're actively saying, I'm not going to put stuff into my system today. I'm going to let the system rest, let it do maintenance, let it get rid of some of the toxins, and also actively be comfortable by being restricted and by saying to myself that I'm willing to go back to what it was like when we were not the way we are. Back to the diet for just a moment. Ayurveda seems to promote a lacto-vegetarian diet. Well, that's Ayurveda as it manifested in the context of, as the particular cultural context, first of all, of the people that developed Ayurveda in its current form, and as it now manifests in the culture in which it is now manifesting. Modern Western research says avoiding all animal products promotes health and reverses all diseases, including cancer. And of course, other research says something else. So should we avoid dairy? Back in the past, when people were really enjoying dairy, they were getting milk from Lakshmi the cow. And Lakshmi the cow was living over here. And in the morning, she would come out and she would eat some grass, and she would eat some vanaspatis and some jadi bootis and so on. And she was having a nice quiet day. And nobody was disturbing her. And Lord Krishna would show up occasionally. And then she would come back home, and that would be a nice quiet life. And she ate all the vanaspatis, and they would come out in the milk, and this was nice. And nowadays, this is not the case. So, if we can, when we can get milk from cows that we know that are healthy, and not to alarm anybody, but I was just a couple of weeks ago in Kuala Lumpur speaking to a conference of cancer survivors, and one of the other speakers was a doctor from Australia who has done a lot of public health things around the world, and the up to the minute late research has indicated that an important cause, I shouldn't say cause, but an important cofactor of breast cancer appears to be infection with the bovine leukemia virus. And that when you have milk that has been pooled from 500 cows or more, there's 100% guarantee that there is bovine leukemia virus in that milk. So I'm very fond of eating dairy, but I have to admit that that was not a reassuring kind of thing. So, should we avoid dairy? It is probably good to be consuming a minimum amount of it. Avoiding it completely should be done if you personally know that you are not responding to it well. And I certainly know, and there was at the behest of my mentor for 6 years, I lived solely on fruit and dairy. And I enjoyed that. Of course, I was 40 years younger. At this stage, I find that I cannot consume as much as I did back then because I just don't have the digestive fire anymore. The most important thing is you have to ask yourself whether what you're eating you are actually digesting. That's the most important thing. It's not what you eat, it's what you digest. And for that matter, it's not what you digest that's really important, it's what you absorb. Frankly, what you absorb is less important than what you assimilate, which is in fact even less important than what you actually utilize. So you should be only consuming as much as you absolutely know that you're going to utilize. And this is where we have to go back into taking some time on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual, and basis, and spending some time with yourself and asking yourself, many people nowadays don't even know when they're hungry. There's a big difference between mental hunger, emotional hunger, physical hunger. Many people have no idea about physical hunger because they're always consuming something. Which is another reason to, let's say, take a day out where you're only consuming water. And then you'll be able to have a different experience of life than the one that you normally do. And then if you do that a few times and start paying attention, and how you pay attention, this will depend on you. For some people, it's useful to visualize having an inner eye. That's E-Y-E as opposed to I. Most of us have the inner capital I. But so that you're actually visualizing looking around in your body and seeing what you see there. Now, obviously, you're not using your physical eye to do that, but your physical eye is only the organ for the sense of sight. And the sense of sight is not limited to that organ because we're visualizing things all the time. In fact, the sense of sight is the most important sense for humanity as a whole. In my opinion, that's because we're the only species that we know of that actually uses fire. And fire is the element, fire is the element that's in charge of the sense of sight. But sight is very important to us. And so if you try to employ that on the inside rather than just on the outside, then you will very likely obtain some useful info. So, please take a look on the inside. You're always going to be attracted to the outside. So counteract that tendency of being externalized by being able to bring your awareness towards the inside. Even a few minutes a day will have an effect. Even a few minutes at a time will have an effect. And on that note, what I can tell you is Lokas samastas sukhino bhavantu. Lokas samastas sukhino bhavantu. Lokas samastas sukhino bhavantu. Namaste.